Hi, this is Kathy Ganatic. I continue my series on the 36 decans of the Zodiac today with Scorpio I, the first decan of Scorpio. We're going to see that people with points and placements in this part of the Zodiac may grapple with questions of this desire to connect deeply in an intimate way with another person, to come to know them, and then the consequences of when we do penetrate another person psychologically when we see them, some of the disappointment and loss we may experience when our illusions are ruptured. And also this capacity to persevere after a moment of loss or disappointment that really fits with the Scorpio energy, which has this capacity to persevere, to continue in the face of difficulty. There's a real quality of the emotions of Scorpio because it's ruled by Mars, this Mars energy, to withstand difficulty. We'll talk about the tarot card associated with this decan, the Five of Cups, and explore some ancient images from the Picatrix and Ibn Ezra. We'll also talk about Nicole Kidman's chart. She has her rising degree in this part of Scorpio, and her life and some of the things she has said about disappointment and loss really fit the vibe of this first 10 degrees of the sign. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, like and subscribe. It helps people find my content, and I really appreciate it. So let me bring up the whiteboard I created to talk about this. And I just need to go back to the beginning. 1 second. Here we go. So the sign of Scorpio in general. Scorpio is a water sign. All the water signs have to do with emotion, intuition. They have a sensitive quality. Imagination is also something that has to do with water. Depth, particularly for Scorpio. Scorpio's like the deep water of the ocean floor, that darkness. It is the second of the water signs. So if you think about the first water sign, Cancer, that's like the shoreline where the crab is, right? The crab is the image for Cancer. But with Scorpio, we have the scorpion who hides under rocks in the darkness and uses his piercer to penetrate others, right? There's a psychological quality to the water signs that really is deepened by the Scorpio Mars energy. Water signs also have this psychic and psychological capacity, right? So then I just want to, one last thing I want to say, if Scorpio is the deep water of the ocean floor, Pisces is the vast water of the ocean itself. And so with all the elements, we get this sense of progression. We have the first element or first sign in an element is about me as an individual, Cancer, water. Scorpio is about me and another person in connection with each other. So it's relational. And then the third sign in an element is more communal about society, and that's Pisces water. Okay. So then Scorpio's ruled by Mars, the god of war. It's about that masculine desire to go for what we want. It's about action, passion, courage, protection, drive, aggression, conflict, and war, right? So then we also have Scorpio is a fixed sign. It happens during the middle of the season. And so there's a steady, consistent, stable energy, a persistence, a loyalty, determination, stubbornness can be associated with all the fixed signs. And so when we put that all together, we really get the vibe of Scorpio being about this capacity to hold on through emotional conflicts and connecting with other people. Whenever I talk about Scorpio, I always like to liken it to the sign of Aries, the other sign ruled by Mars. Mars is like the prize fighter who gets, Aries is like the prize fighter who gets the knockout in the first round. It's a fire sign. It's quick. It's cardinal. It likes to start things. Scorpio is like the prize fighter that goes 15 rounds, gets all bloodied up, and wins in the end, right? This determination, capacity to stick with it, but still that aggressive quality and the desire to really engage and get in there. Okay. So then let's go to the slide about the decan itself. This 10 degrees of Scorpio, what differentiates it from the other two decans in Scorpio? Well, it's the planetary rulers. And if we have Mars ruling the whole sign, we have Mars ruling the decan under the triplicity system and Mars ruling the decan under the Chaldean order. So we have a triple Mars water fixed sign. And so we double down on that idea of really wanting to dig in and penetrate when we're connecting to other people, that relationality, right? We see this in the ancient texts that are associated with this decan. I'll read them and then explain the connection or why they have to do with this idea of penetration and getting in close. We have Ibn Ezra, who describes this decan as a beautiful woman. Her body is red and she is eating. We have the Picatrix, a man holding a lance in his right hand, but a human head in his left. And this is a face of disposition, sadness, evil will, and hostility. Agrippa describes this decan as a woman of good face and habit, and two men striking her. The operations of these are for comeliness, beauty, and for strifes, treacheries, deceits, detractions, and perditions. Pretty dark stuff. If I were to try to connect this to the idea of penetrating another person or trying to really get close and intimate, emotionally connected, um, I would talk about the fact that we have here a woman, she's red and she's eating. Austin Coppock, when he describes this decan, describes it as the jawbone. When we really want to bite into something and integrate it psychologically, there's something about consuming something, we're taking it into ourself, right? And so this is the penetrative nature of Mars in water signs, and particularly in this first decan. And the similar idea with a man holding a lance in his right hand. As Austin Coppock describes, a lance is different than a sword. A sword cuts something off, but a lance penetrates it. It's like you take a lance and you stick it in the thing that you want to kill or take possession of. And so it's got that same idea of penetrating and wanting to take possession of something. But there's also a sadness here, evil will and hostility. So the sadness we're going to see, particularly when we talk about the tarot card associated with this decan, there's something about when we do penetrate something and take it over, there can be a disappointment or a disillusionment that can come over us as we come to know the other intimately. And then Agrippa, I just see this interesting, kind of dark. These men are, striking this woman who's beautiful, and there's something about strife, something about treachery, about deceit, and so this to me is also this disillusionment about what the other is or what one comes to know, maybe the anger or disappointment that comes as a result of connecting with another or seeing somebody as not what we thought they were. So then let's move to the tarot card associated with this decan. And first, instead of using the Rider-Waite deck, which is what I usually use, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, we're going to look at Liz Green. She created a deck in 1985, I think. She's an astrologer, but also, and first, a Jungian analyst. And so she worked with Greek mythology a lot. And in her deck, when she talks about the cups, she talks about the myth of Eros and Psyche. And so I really love her discussion of the Five of Cups when I work with this tarot deck. I think it does a really nice job of capturing this Scorpio energy. So I'm just going to read through this myth quickly so that we have a sense of what it's about. And then we'll talk about it in context of the card and Scorpio 1. So in the myth, Psyche's a mortal woman and she's extraordinarily beautiful. And Venus, the goddess of love, who's also beautiful, becomes envious of her. And so she sends her son Eros to make Psyche fall in love with him. Or make Psyche fall in love with something vile. Instead of doing that, Eros falls for her and whisks her away to a hidden palace, visiting her only at night and forbidding her to look at him. And so she and Psyche fall in love. She's not allowed to see how gorgeous he is, right? And she's been sleeping with him and she's not sure who he is. And she's left uncertain about his true identity. And one night she's driven by her curiosity and her doubt about who, she loves him, but she's not really sure who he is. And so she lights a lamp to see him while he sleeps. She's captivated by his divine beauty, but her actions betray his trust. A drop of oil from the lamp wakes him up, and Eros, heartbroken by her disobedience, flees, leaving Psyche alone and consumed by regret. Desperate to win him back, Psyche embarks on a series of near impossible tasks set by Venus. And this is the rest of the story that gets played out in the remaining Cups card. Her perseverance and willingness to endure great hardship prove her love, and eventually the gods reunite her with Eros. So then let's look at the meaning of that of this Five of Cups card. The Five of Cups is that moment. If you look at the image there, it's the moment. She's still got the candle lit in her hand, or the lamp lit. And it's the moment where Eros is fleeing from her. We see the falling cups on the ground, 4 cups, that loss, that disappointment, both his disappointment at her betraying his trust and her disappointment that came about as the result of this act of coming to know him. But we do see 1 cup remaining on the ground. We're going to see that also with the 5 of Cups Rider-Waite, that something remains in this moment of having penetrated the other and seeing or coming to know they're not identical to what we might have imagined. So this decan speaks to the fierce desire for intimacy, the need to merge with the other completely. Mars drives us to seek connection so deep it feels transformative. That's the vibe of this first decan. I really want to connect with someone. Yet this intensity can often lead to disillusionment, as truly knowing someone can shatter the idealized image we hold. In the myth of Psyche and Eros, Psyche's need to see Eros reflects this hunger for understanding. Her act of shining the lamp on him is both intimacy and betrayal, destroying the illusion of perfect love. Eros flees, leaving Psyche to face the emptiness that comes when fantasy is replaced with reality. This is the essence of the 5 of Cups, the grief of realizing another cannot be fully possessed. Yet the 2 upright, it says 2 upright cups, there's actually only 1, that's my error, remind us that intimacy is about loving the other as they truly are. So the 2 of them coming to love each other, right? Disillusionment makes way for deeper, more authentic connection, where love transforms through truth, not fantasy. That's the whole playing out of these cups cards from the 5 onward. And so here we see the 5 of Cups in the Rider-Waite, which has a similar vibe. I've always loved this card, but perhaps because I'm a Scorpio rising, and part of Scorpio is about dealing with loss and death and survival and these darker questions of life. Remember, it's the deep water of the ocean floor. It's very psychological, right? So here we see a cloaked figure who mourns. When I look at this card, I actually kind of think of Nicole Kidman after seeing a video of her where she's talking about the loss of her mother. And I'll talk about her chart in a second. But we have this figure that's mourning very clearly in a dark cloak. It's interesting, Scorpio risings like me, I wear a lot of black. I've read astrology charts for a lot of Scorpio risings, and oftentimes black is kind of like one of their colors. Anyway, she faces 3 spilled cups. And you can look at those. You see the red wine. There's a little green there as well, perhaps representing what's left, right? The potential for some new growth out of this loss. But we see the wine or blood spilled, spilled passions and emotional loss, regret, disappointment, and grief. But of course, there's 2 cups in the background signifying overlooked hope. What's in the background, in the unconscious, in that moment of loss, we turn around and we see the potential that not is all is lost. We also see a river flowing in front of her, symbolizing emotional continuity and the flowing of life energy. Life goes on in the midst of loss. And then we see a bridge leading to a house. This suggests a way forward, even in that moment of grief. Yeah. And so then let's go on to look at the Kabbalah. Um, we can always, with the tarot cards, they have built into them this tree of life that is part of the ancient Hermetic Kabbalah. And it's this diagram that shows or represents the descent of divine inspiration into the material world. There's a lightning flash that traces the flow of creative energy from divine source at the top, Keter, to the physical world, what we manifest in the world, Malkuth, which is at the bottom. And this process illustrates how spiritual concepts take form and manifest in reality. Again, we can see this in mythology as well as we trace the myth of Eros and Psyche, the progression of transformation of divine love into the reality of what love is when it manifests in the real world with human beings who are imperfect, right? And so then we can look at that idea of loss and resilience that's built into the Scorpio, particularly this Decan one. So we have here the movement from the number 4, the 4 of Cups, which is the last decan of Cancer. Now we're moving on to the next water sign, Scorpio, the first decan, and it's the 5 of Cups. So we move from the Sephira Hesed, which was the 4 of Cups, to the Sephira Gabora, which is the 5 of Cups. And this is about a transition from Hesed is the expansive mercy and abundance. Mercy is what Hesed is associated, and Gabora is focused power of judgment and necessary loss. This teaches the value of letting go to make space for transformation. There's a movement here. When we're in the number 4, the 4 of Cups, the image associated with that is you see a young man under a tree. He has 3 cups before him. Somebody's offering him a 4th. It can be almost this maternal bubble where we're getting everything we need and we don't want anything more. He's kind of pushing that water aside. And there's something about when we move from the containment of the 4 out into the creativity or the expression of the 5, when we're breaking out of the bubble into the real world, where there's a disappointment that comes with that, but it's also a necessary movement. We can't stay within sort of the maternal safety of Cancer's beautiful garden forever. We need to move out from the individual containment into the relational connection with the other that comes with the second of the water signs, Scorpio. So Hesed, called mercy, represents love, generosity, and growth without limits. That's that 4 of Cups. I'm going to give you everything you need, honey. Don't worry. But you're like, Mom, that's enough. I want to go out and have a relationship with another person. You leave home, the 5 of Cups, you connect with someone, right? And then you face Gabora, which is called strength or severity. And it introduces the discipline to cut away what hinders progress, using loss as a tool for clarity and alignment. So again, whenever we move into a relationship with another person, we're taking a risk of rejection, disillusionment, loss, but it's this necessary cutting away or leaving that maternal energy to connect with another and come to know ourselves. So the 5, so that is like the mourning the loss of something cherished, but recognizing the necessity of that loss. And the 5 of Cups, the spilled cups, represent grief and disappointment, while the upright cups behind signify the enduring gifts of Hesed's mercy that remain, awaiting to be acknowledged. The first decan of Scorpio, ruled by Mars, reflects this transition from, again, I feel like it's leaving mama to go out into the world. You still have some connection with the resources you got, but you need to move forward and conquer life a little bit on your own emotionally, right? Okay, then let's move to our example, which is Nicole Kidman. I thought this was perfect when I was looking at people who had their rising signs in Scorpio. And I saw that Nicole Kidman had hers in the first 10 degrees. I thought perfect because I just finished watching the last season of 9 Perfect Strangers. If you see that, the entire show is focused on grief and loss. One of the running themes of the show is Nicole Kidman has lost her daughter. Her daughter has died as a result of Nicole Kidman herself getting involved with a man who was less than honest. That whole idea of disillusionment. She's lost her daughter, and she's running this retreat for people, and they use psychedelics to help people work on their psychological shit, let's say. I say shit because Scorpio is the sign of shit, among other things. It's about holding on, right? And letting go and releasing in moments of loss. So, so there's just something, it really captures that Scorpio one. How am I going to work with deep grief and loss in life when I've connected to somebody I really care about and I need to let them go? Either because they want to leave me, or something, you could say leave me symbolically, in the sense that we might have a disagreement and having to come to terms with the lack of total intimacy or the loss of total intimacy that can happen in that Four of Cups when we're or with mother, right, in the home, feeling no disconnect. But what is it like to be who you are in relationship with another person and have to let go of the fact that you're not identical? And also, that is a death, just like when we lose someone in life is a death, and we have to let go or integrate the part of them that we were deeply connected with. This is complex psychological stuff. But anyway, that's what that third season, I think it's the third season of Nine Perfect Strangers, is about. Not only Nicole Kidman, but all the other figures are dealing with loss in their life and coming to accept it and persevere and go on. We really see Nicole Kidman, as much as she's all lost in her grief about her daughter, she's struggling to understand and get a connection with it, and she's persevering in the midst of that. So then I thought I'd close with a quote from Nicole Kidman. She lost her mother recently. I saw this Instagram video where she's got all teary-eyed as she's talking about the loss of her mother. And she says, "You lose the person that knows everything but loves you anyway." I love when people say there's no limit to your grief. You don't have to have a time limit on it. You don't have to be better by this time. So you're allowed to constantly let it pass through in waves. It's my mama, my life, and I'm allowed to possess, or excuse me, to process and grieve in my way. So it just captures the deep, there can sometimes be a little bit of a deep melancholy with folks with planets or points in this part of the chart, or a gravitas, the gravitas that comes with really working our grief, working, letting go. And then you understand and have some sympathy and capacity to be with other people as they suffer their own losses. So I thought this was a really fascinating decan. I hope you enjoyed the talk. If you do, again, it'd be great if you could like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon for Scorpio 2.